Welcome to She Moves Bravely, a podcast dedicated to empowering women through stories of resilience, courage, and success. I'm your host, Shantae Dent. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to a woman who moves bravely. Her name is Tisha Wylie, also known as Chef Tisha. Welcome to the show, Tisha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I totally appreciate it. When you asked, I was like, yes, say less.
It was something because, we grew up together, grew up in church together, and now, we're separated by distance, living in different states, but thank goodness for social media, Facebook, etc. And it has allowed me to follow your journey. And you have this incredible story, and I'm really excited to dive right into it because you're going to, I know for sure, encourage women who are in this space of transitioning with their career. You know how that gets, following your purpose, your passion, expertise, etc. But as I have followed your journey online and seeing the products and the different programs that you were offering through cooking, it excited me, and I was just again able to see from a distance your passion unfolding in this beautiful way. And so I thought, yeah, I want to hear from Tisha, and I would love for the audience to hear more about you. So, Tisha, I'm passing the baton to you. Tell us about you, your journey, and your story, and what you're doing today.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Tisha. Commonly, people usually call me Chef Tisha or Yes Chef. And so as far as my journey, I I had a passion to cook. I've always had that. I loved entertaining when I was younger. I still do love doing that today. But even when I was younger, I just love feeding people and having people have that experience. And so anytime I had a chance, I'm always like, come over, I'm gonna cook. Or decide I'm gonna make X, Y, and Z and invite whomever to or bake something or anything like that. So I never really thought that I was gonna turn that into like a career or anything like that. I just something that I enjoyed doing. And I thought one day, oh, I'm gonna have a cooking show because I used to watch cooking shows when I was it was cartoons and cooking shows. That's what I was watching when I was growing up. So I just thought, forget all the in between. Nobody thinks about the in between. I'm just like, somebody's going to recognize me and I'm going to be at a cooking show. That's what my young mind thought. Um, but, as I got into it, I still worked my regular professional job, in the corporate space. But in 2006, 2007, oh, maybe 2006 or 2007, I made the transition and a friend encouraged me to start a food-based business. And at first I told her no. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. It's no. And it couldn't really connect the dots as to why she thought I would be doing that. But the reality is I could have been doing it because I've been doing it all this time, just no one was paying me for it, right? And so I still work my corporate job. And then I would open my own business. At the time, it was called Creative Touch Foods. And then I later changed it to Tisha's Table. But I did a lot of private chefs, a lot of private parties, dinner dates, parties up to like 30 people. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. I've always loved teaching. I think I have a teacher's heart. In between all those, gigs that I was doing in parties and all that kind of stuff, I would occasionally teach, I called them at the time culinary boot camp classes. And so I would get like 3 or 4 people, we'd run through a bunch of stuff so they can kind of learn how to cook. Because people, they would ask, hey, how do I do that? How did you do that? Can you give me the recipe? All that kind of stuff. And so, boom, pandemic hit. I had an opportunity to switch and pivot my business from private chef and dinner parties and all that stuff to online cooking, and which was great. I loved it. I mean, my reach was further. I had some international students that participated, and that just gave me all the feels. I'm like, oh, I felt honored that somebody was taking
Yes,
the
that's
class. One
amazing.
was in a couple in Canada, 1 or 2 in Italy, one in Greece. So I thought, oh my God, this is, the reach is further. So I could, really kind of do this. I was teaching monthly cooking classes at the time, which was successful. I don't like to call myself a coach, but I kind of narrowed it down because people were saying, hey, do you do vegetarian? Do you do vegan? Do you do, gluten-free, all that kind of stuff. So I decided to pivot again, still in the same vein, but just kind of bring it down to a 90-minute program that's curated to the individual. So it's a bespoke program. I've got some basic stuff that people need to learn as far as like techniques and all that kind of stuff. And so I have that, but then we really go for the 90 minutes. We do a kitchen and pantry audit, and then we kind of do what that person wants to do as far as cooking. So yeah. Oh, in between all that, I wrote a cookbook.
Cookbook.
Yeah, I wrote a
Yes.
cookbook and an ebook in between all that fun stuff. So
Yes. And it's so expansive in terms of what you offer and the way you offer it. So it's well-rounded. I have had some guests on in the past, and there's a common statement that I hear often where there will be this interest and a dream and desire during childhood. And for a number of reasons, there comes this separation and we get into a different industry or a different field. And I'm always full of excitement and joy when I hear my guests say, and then I returned, like
yes,
returning back to your
yes.
first love. Yeah, and that's what happened with you, Tisha. I love this. Now, you are so incredibly gifted and talented. So I want to talk about what that transition looked like. You mentioned your friend who encouraged you to start the business. And initially, though, you said, no, nope, I'm good. But what was going on internally? Why did you say no? And then what happened in terms of how you transitioned to actually saying yes?
So I had just moved to the East Coast. I moved to the East Coast, northern part of Virginia in 2007. And so shortly after that, maybe like the fall or something like that, may have been maybe the top of 2008. Um, she and I were just talking on the phone, and she's like, you need to really start your own business. And I thought she was talking about like office management type stuff, executive assistant type stuff, because that's what I'd been doing. And so when I mentioned it to her, she's like, no, you need to go cook. You need to go like cook for people. And I was like, yeah, no, no. So what I did was I kind of was like a smart aleck. And I was like, okay, you know what, Lord, if you want me to start this business, you're gonna have to give me a name. I was really just like, I'm not doing this. You're gonna have to give me a name. If you want me to start it, then I know it's from you. Not really paying attention to it. So that night, that day that I said it, I went to sleep, woke up the next day, and I had Creative Touch Foods. I was like, oh,
There you go.
start the business. Internally, it just never crossed my mind
Mm,
to private chef for people. Um, but now that when I look back on it, I was really doing that anyway, just people weren't paying me for my services,
mm,
right?
yeah.
And so when I got into it, I thought, oh, I could do that. I had already written some recipes, finishing up my first edition cookbook. And I thought, oh yeah, yeah, I could do this. And so that's how I started the journey. It wasn't too much resistance.
Mhm.
I was being like a little smart alecky in the beginning of it because I just thought, you know what, the Lord's gonna have to basically tell me what's up before I go ahead and go on this journey. And then I got
Yeah.
the with the name, just clear as day, just clear as day. I mean, I've changed it since, but that was the initial name of the company. So
Mm.
once I got going, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I did more baking. I did a lot of custom cakes for people because people were looking for that at the time. And so yeah, it was good. I mean, I didn't have any resistance to it. Once I got into it, I was like, yeah, I leaned into it. And I was like, yeah, still, working the corporate gig.
Yeah.
And then just kind of trying to be um thoughtful about how I accept clients, and what the capacity I could and handle them at that time. So yeah, that's what I did. That's how I started.
Lovely. Tisha, you said still working the corporate gig, which wants me to circle back to what we were talking about offline in terms of women who have their main source of income, their full-time job, or for some it might be part-time. But there's oftentimes this inner conflict with, here's my corporate career, but what about, that passion or that desire? If they are not crossing paths, some women feel this internal struggle and maybe even a great deal of emptiness because they feel as if they're not whole or complete in terms of doing what they've truly desired to do with their passion or their purpose. And then when they consider, well, here's where the bulk of my income is coming from. What could you say to that woman who is in that space right now, just struggling with the two?
I think you have to have a come to Jesus moment. And what a lot of people are not saying online is they're making people feel like if you're not doing whatever your passion is, like gun ho 100%, then you're not committed. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just not true. It's not true at all. There's some people, a lot of those coaches, what they're not telling you is they could go, gun ho 100% because they have a partner, be a spouse or a partner or somebody that's bringing up, the rears with bills and all this other kind of stuff. So then you have women, at the time I was single, um, that needed to you still needed to pay your rent, your mortgage, your bills, and all this other kind of stuff. And so I say to those women, don't kick yourself in the butt about it. A lot of people don't care for Steve Harvey, but he said something so poignant back in the day, where he said, have your passion, but if you're working like a regular 9 to 5 job, use those funds to fund your business,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, whether that's coaching, whether that's buying equipment, whatever the case may be, be smart about it. But he basically said, don't make anybody make you feel like you have to quit your day job to create your passion, because then you're going to be like under a bridge somewhere with no
Mhm.
home.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Be smart about it.
Yeah.
Use your income, portion of your income, whatever that looks like for you, to invest in yourself in whatever your passion is.
Mhm.
So I think is wise advice.
It is.
And people should lean into that and not kind of get into the hype of it's all or nothing, because that's not reality. It's just not.
Yeah. So true. Yeah, so true. And I wanted you to touch on that because I can only imagine someone often feeling like a failure, where I'm not pursuing on that level that I should be pursuing it on. And as you mentioned, it's so important to use wisdom. There are those incredible stories that we hear where, someone left that corporate job, they and decided to do something completely different, following that passion, and they, walked into an abundance of income. And
Yep.
we know those stories happen, and if that's not the situation for you, then we don't want you to feel discouraged or as if you're not doing what you were created to do. There is a
Yes.
way, to maneuver through this process. And for some, it might be, this gradual change and overlap where eventually you can walk away from the 9 to 5 and go fully into whatever is on your heart, whatever that business is, or that program, that service, or that product. For others, you're 100% content maintaining your work in corporate America or whatever that position is. And on the side, like people say, that side gig or that side hustle. I like to encourage people to discover what works for them, for their lifestyle, for their family. And there's so many ways to experience peace and contentment with just a number of variables that might not look like your friend.
There's always some underlying story that people don't always share, whether they are doing it purposely or not, whatever the case may be. There's always some underlying story behind how they got from point A to point B. So, yeah, to your point, I just, if you have a passion, I say go for it.
Mhm.
Um, it'll look different for everybody. But don't beat yourself up if you still have to go to your 9 to 5 or whatever your hourly job, whatever the case may be. Um, and to start, you just start, just start.
Just start. I love that. And that's what it's all about, moving bravely, taking one step at a time. All right, so Chef Tisha, how do you navigate the world of cooking and teaching? What does that look like?
So I have 2 programs. One will kick off in the fall. It's a group program, but what I'm offering now is it's a 101. We call them VIP saucy sessions is what they're called. and they're 90 minutes, really a little bit more than 90 minutes because we do an initial phone call. So I can kind of get what the person, how they move as far, what they eating and all this other kind of stuff. So we'll do an initial call about, eating habits, all that kind of stuff, whether you're vegetarian, whether you just want to eat all the things, whether, whatever that looks like. And then the 90-minute session. So based on that information, it'll help me get a bespoke recipe guide for that person. And that's the program. That's what we'll run through. That's how we'll cook. So for example, if you're just like, you know what, Tisha, I need to eat more vegetarian stuff, and I like all these spices. I don't like these, I like that. And so from that information, I go ahead and just create a recipe for that 90-minute session. So within that 90-minute session, not only are we cooking, but we are doing a pantry audit so I can kind of see what you have going on in your pantry as far as spices, a fridge audit so I could see what's going on in there. And then I offer some suggestions on all those things so you can be more successful in the kitchen.
That's a win-win
And then
situation.
they have me for 90 minutes to, not only just cook through the session, but ask me questions.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I like this setup, and I know that so many individuals can appreciate it. When we talk about the pros and cons of all of the information that's readily available online, it can be confusing. I know there are times where I'm Googling things and I'm like, you know what, Google, not today. Because when we are trying to inquire on how to eat, how to exercise, how to, you fill in the blanks, yeah, there's a lot of great information that we can receive, and it can also be overwhelming.
organization is like one of the big things that I talk about, like at the top of everything, whether it's a monthly class or now my saucy sessions. Kitchen organization for me is like paramount. Like, so if you don't have that, then you're gonna always be frustrated in the kitchen, like always. Even just like menu planning and being thoughtful about
Yes.
what it is that you have in your cabinets, what it is that you're shopping for. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to grocery stores and I'm in line with all my little groceries like at Trader Joe's, and then somebody like takes off and they're, oh, I forgot that. They take off. Oh, I forgot that. And they take off again. I'm just like, okay, where's your list?
Where's the list? I love that. Yes.
So and not only just keeping your kitchen organized, like legit organized, but just keeping yourself mentally organized so you feel better about what it is that you're doing in the kitchen. Not everybody, loves being in the kitchen. So when I offer those type of tips as far as, getting your mind in the game. Or even, and I'm not even talking about just married women. I did a lot of this stuff when I was single, a lot of it. And so, when someone says, oh, you do that for your family. No, I was doing this but for myself for a very long time. The way I shop, I'd go to Costco and buy a ton of produce, or I'm sorry, a ton of protein, fish, chicken, all that stuff, packaged up individually, and then go buy vegetables as I need them. Do you know, stuff like that?
Yeah.
That people, like, oh my God, what am I going to cook? So, you may not have to have like a full week's menu. You could, but at least you're setting yourself up. You're like, oh, okay, I've got chicken. We're gonna do curry tonight, or that kind of stuff. And you have stuff in your pantry to help you with that, stuff in your fridge to help you with that. So yeah.
Excellent. So you're helping individuals save time, save money, and just bring a sense of order to shopping, to their kitchen, their pantry, refrigerator, etc. And I do like how you highlighted that it's not only for married women, like this is for anyone. I can imagine, it could be the entire family in on this 90-minute session, your kids, like help your kids get in that kitchen and experience what it's like. So single, married, Chef Tisha is the woman for you. How can individuals connect with you, Chef Tisha?
You could visit my website, which is tishastable.com. You could also follow me on all of my socials. On Instagram and TikTok, it is at Chef Tisha W. On LinkedIn, if I'm still I'm trying to get into the LinkedIn thing. I feel like I'm still such an infant in there, but you can follow me there or connect with me there. It is LinkedIn, Tisha's Table.
We will be sure to include all of Tisha's information in our show notes. Tisha, I want to thank you for showing up, number one, to remind individuals that they can always creatively incorporate that first love, that passion into their new current situation. And as we said, it might look like simultaneously creating your side gig, which looks like part-time as you continue a corporate role, or you can make the transition slowly. But whatever that looks like for you, as Tisha said, no need to feel bad or put the unnecessary pressure on yourself. Use wisdom if you're looking to transition in your career. And as you're doing this transition, if you need some tips, techniques, a little bit of assistance in the kitchen, you be sure to connect with Chef Tisha. Thank you for being with us today, Tisha.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me.